Oh. So you want to scale Scrum, and for some strange reason, you don't think that you must pay the toll. Well, this is the toll right here. You can't get past my nightmares without some of the pain that it must exude upon your body. But if you do want to get past those tolls, come join me for this conversation right now. And what are some of the things that really you run into when you are trying to scale Scrum? Well, first and foremost, the thing that I need to talk to you about is these three things because realistically, if you look at scaling of any kind whatsoever, right? Scaling Scrum, scaling Agile in general, you're going to find these three things to be consistent in all the problems that you have, right? Your problems will be within these areas because having the right mindset, having the right processes, having the right tools are the things that help organizations overcome these nightmares that I'm going to classically present to you, right? And by doing that, you can achieve really great benefits with scaling Scrum. But the opposite of that is also true. That these are the same three things that when you're trying to scale, you likely have a problem with the mindset, the tools, and the processes. So I want you to really be really cognizant of this because this is really important. Those three things is likely where you're going to see those problems at. So it's going to be the benefit for you. It's going to be huge problems, but these are areas where it's going to take you doing lots of different things to tackle these things and to make them better. And please know that your journey of scaling is not like an event. It's not an event, right? It is not a project. Okay. I mean, you may institute a project, but it's not a project. It doesn't have an end time. You have to think of it as a journey that you are consistently going on because we always find ways to make things better. And if you really think about these three things I just presented to you mindset, tools, and processes you'll find challenges in here, but you'll also find opportunities on where you can improve. Now, here's the deal. When you look at those three things right there, right? Those three things I just presented to you, we can agree, right? Those three things are likely where you're going to find a lot of those issues at, right? But when you get down to the specifics of of what challenges actually exist, that's what I wanted to talk to you about right now. Okay. And I did it as a top 10. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with number 10, right? If you look at number 10, integration is one of the big challenges that exists when it comes to scaling. Now, why do I say integration and why do I make it so generic? Because here's the deal, the challenge is finding ways to integrate work effectively. You know, as an organization, as a coach, as a person that's helping with this change process, you have to find ways that ensure that the teams on the ground that's doing the real work have better ways of working together in a more in a seamless way that's almost like it's just a natural part of what they do, right? You got to make sure that their work is integrated and you got to start looking at things holistically, right? And so integration is just one of those big things that you have to deal with. I guarantee you, most of you all in the room would agree with me that one of the problems that you see that happens when you got lots of teams working together is them having issues with that work or issues with integration. Now, we don't stop there because our number nine doesn't take us too much further, right? Another big problem that we have classically with scaling is the events. Now, for those that are not super familiar with Scrum, when I say events to you, think ceremonies, think rituals, think meetings. When I say events to you, I'm talking about the sprint. I'm talking about sprint planning. I'm talking about daily scrums, sprint reviews, and sprint retrospectives. Some of you all will throw in there refinement meetings because you include that as a part of Scrum, but that's not officially part of Scrum. But that would be another thing that you would have to scale. And then you think about other technical meetings that you may have to deal with, right? You know, one thing that you're going to have to deal with is finding ways to make sure that these events are effective at scale, are effective at scale. You don't want to turn it into we just have a lot of meetings for the sake of having meetings. That's not the purpose of the events. The events never formed to be that way, right? Now, number 8 shouldn't be too difficult either. Most of you all probably have experienced this as well, and number 8, oh, my thing won't even move. Let's go ahead and go to number 8. Let me pull up and let me get my window here. Number 8 is going to be a lack of experience with scaling. Okay. Another big issue is most people in the building probably have never done anything related to scaling. You know, Scrum is designed to deal with complex issues, complex complexity in the organization, period. And you and the people inside of the organization may not have the experience with scaling, period. So training and coaching and things of that nature, gaining knowledge, gaining skills, all become vastly important in terms of what we do. Well, I say those things to you, right? Because we just went through 3 of them, right? And when I when I look at the 3, you know, the integration, the actual scaling Scrum events, lack of experience, when I think about those 3, you know, those are 3 big things. And that's not saying regardless of what scaling framework you decide to use, you still will have these kind of issues to deal with, right? Somebody can tell you to use lean prioritization, but what is that going to do for you? You're still going to have to deal with these issues, is the point I'm making to you, right? So don't think you get to run away from these issues because of that. But we're not done with our countdown, right? We're not done. So we're going to move on to the next one here, right? And our next one is going to be resistance to change. Now, here's the deal. Everybody will say to you that change is the most natural thing that occurs in life in general. Well, resistance would be the second most natural thing that occurs in life in general, period. So, with all change comes resistance. So, my statement to you is clearly this: stop complaining about the resistance. Because most of you all in the room, I mean, have any of you all had, I mean, let me just say this. Have any of you all experienced a change effort with no resistance? Come on. If you have, say you have, right? But you know you haven't. So let's not play those games, right? You're going to run into resistance. You might as well get yourself ready and prepared to deal with it. Does that make sense? Well, we don't stop there, right? Let's see. Number 6, technical dependencies. Technical dependencies is a huge ordeal for a lot of organizations. It might be the way that you structured yourself and the type of silos that you created, how you built things in the past, those technical requirements that come up, or just the dependencies in general, the coordination of those dependencies between teams. All those things you're going to have to find ways to deal with, and it's nothing new. Nothing new. We all run into these problems, right? So you're gonna have to find ways to deal with this. Just another nightmare that we exist, right? But they don't stop there, right? They just don't stop there because prioritization is another nightmare that happens, right? If you're scaling for a reason. Why would you be scaling? Because there's probably more work and they need more resources to get that work done. Well, whether you're whether you're prioritizing tasks, whether you're prioritizing the requirements in a particular effort, in a product backlog, whether you're scaling entire efforts at an organizational enterprise level, prioritization is something that happens from top to bottom. And we have to deal with prioritization in our world. If we don't deal with prioritization, then we have a huge issue, right? And we just got to find ways to deal with it on a regular basis. Does this make sense, y'all? Right? But again, it doesn't matter what framework you use. I don't care what framework you use, right? Because All your frameworks are going to have these 10 problems to deal with, and you still will have to deal with these problems within those frameworks. And these are those classic nightmares that happen. You should be used to them if you've ever worked with more than one team, right? Especially inside a large enough organization. But we only made it. I mean, we only made it to number 5. We still got more to go, right? So let's go back and let's continue. Let's continue hopping here, right? So prioritization is one thing, but what about the actual alignment, right? The alignment of, and I'm not talking about alignment of teams here. We've already talked about a lot of team stuff. I'm talking about the organization's mission, the organization's goals. I'm talking about communication, right? I'm talking about transparency at all levels. This is truly challenging, right? I worked with an organization recently where, when you looked at the people on the ground, they had no idea what key results executives wanted them to achieve. But then the executives were saying in the same breath that they've been communicated. So obviously there's a gap, and we gotta deal with that gap, right? And it's just a natural thing that's going to happen. But we don't stop there because you have those scrum roles, right? Well, not just scrum roles, right? Because there are other roles that classically exist that do things, right? I can easily say to you, what about that product owner? What about that scrum master role? But a lot of times when you have large enough organizations, you have certain boundaries that they don't want you to cross, certain people that do a specific kind of work, certain people that have certain specialization. Well, how do you scale those kind of things beyond just that product owner and scrum master? Because the devs are the devs, right? They're getting work done. But the idea is that how do you scale that product owner, scrum master, and all the other assets that exist in terms of people that support the teams moving forward? So you got to think about those roles as well. Now, another big problem is going to be coordination. As teams grow, it can be challenging to coordinate their efforts and everyone ensure that everyone is working toward the same goal. This is where we got to get real super clear on communication within the team. Collaboration tools probably need to happen, and these tools got so much better when COVID happened. Once COVID happened, collaboration tools just got better, like literally got better, right? So even though we were collaborating a lot, internally, they just got much better, right? And so literally, you think about that coordination, it's a big deal. But that leaves us still with one big gigantic thing to go, right? I mean, and I know that most of you all in the room, you understand and you feel what I'm saying to you, right? And coordination is key. The scaling roles is key. Alignment is key. But you all know what the number one thing is. Nobody in this room should be surprised on what the number one thing is, right? You shouldn't be, and I'm just gonna show it to you. Cultural change. You know, you got to get the culture to shift, and cultural change is a big deal, right? And understand, a lot of people don't really know how to define culture, but it's your norms, it's your rituals, it's your practices that you have created over time. Based on the things that happened in the organization, based on the people in the organization. Your culture is almost like the living and breathing part of the organization, right? And you're gonna have to find ways to change that because once status quo get in place, it's really hard to just fight against that, right? So, those are the 10 things that I think about, right? You know, when you think about the 10 that I gave you, which one stands out to you the most?